The galaxy had changed, and everyone knew it. In every corner of space, people whispered the name of the conquering race, the Zelkor. Tall, armored, and completely fearless, the Zelkor had made surrender a habit for everyone they met. Their ships looked like black mountains in the sky, blocking out the suns wherever they landed. Nobody had ever stopped them, and nobody had even tried. Not really. Because the Zelkor were not just powerful, they were everywhere, and they never lost. On planet after planet, leaders would receive a simple message. The message was always the same: surrender now, and we will spare your world. Some tried to fight, but their ships were destroyed before they even left the atmosphere. Others surrendered without a word, and the Zelkor simply took control. Families packed up their homes and learned to bow to the conquerors. They did it out of fear and sometimes out of hope that if they obeyed, their lives would go back to normal. But life never went back to normal. Soon, the Zelkor turned their attention to Earth. Their fleets were already on the edge of the solar system, their scouts gathering information. People on Earth heard the news quickly, and everyone felt the same cold shiver run down their backs. The news channels showed images of planets burning, cities turned to silent rubble, and proud armies kneeling. Some people cried, others prayed, and a few, the stubborn ones, simply clenched their fists and shook their heads. They were not ready to surrender. In a small apartment in New York, Alex, a young army officer, watched the broadcast with his parents. His mother squeezed his hand tightly, her eyes wet with tears. His father looked at him with silent worry. "What do we do, Alex?" his mother asked softly. "We don't give up," Alex said, his voice trembling but steady. "Not ever." Far away in Tokyo, an engineer named Mia was building a radio jammer from old computer parts. She did not believe the stories at first, about the Zelkor, about whole planets bowing without a fight. But now, with the fleet on their doorstep, she knew the truth. The only thing she knew for sure was that she would never let anyone conquer her city without a fight. "I will make them notice us," Mia whispered as she twisted wires together, her hands shaking but determined. News of the Zelkor's arrival spread faster than wildfire. Governments called emergency meetings. Generals and admirals spoke in hurried voices, trying to come up with a plan. Some people argued for surrender, saying it would save lives. Others wanted to fight, even if it meant certain defeat. But the world's leaders were not ready to bow. In a secret room beneath Washington, the president of Earth's largest country sat with her advisors. The walls were covered in maps, and screens blinked with urgent messages. "We have seen what happens to those who surrender," she said, quietly. "We will fight, even if we are alone." As the days passed, strange signals appeared on Earth's satellites. The Zelkor's language was hard to understand, full of clicks and hums, but their message was clear. They demanded surrender. Their voice, coming from every speaker, every screen, every radio, echoed through empty streets and crowded homes. "Your world is next. Surrender or be destroyed." Most planets would have given up, but Earth was different. Small groups of people met in basements, parks, and online forums, sharing ideas and building hope. "What if we hide our cities?" one scientist asked. "What if we use old weapons they don't expect?" said another. "What if we show them that humans never surrender?" In a tiny village in Africa, children listened as their grandmother told them stories of old wars and impossible victories. "Our ancestors faced monsters too," she said, her voice full of pride. "But they did not bow. They stood tall, and so will we." The Zelkor scouts entered Earth's orbit and sent images back to their leaders. They saw cities full of lights, rivers winding through green lands, and people moving with hurried energy. Their commanders watched and waited for the humans to send a message of surrender. But no message came. The first real test came when the Zelkor landed their smallest ship near a big city. Their soldiers marched out, their armor shining under the sun. They expected fear. They expected the people to fall to their knees. Instead, they saw a line of police cars, fire trucks, and even ordinary people blocking the road. "We will not surrender," shouted a young woman, holding a flag in her hand. The Zelkor were surprised. They tried to push forward, but the people did not move. Instead, they sang their national anthem, loud and clear. The world watched as the Zelkor hesitated for the first time. Meanwhile, Alex and his team were sent to set up defenses around the city's edge. The soldiers worked side by side with engineers and even high school students. Some dug trenches, others set up sensors, and a few made plans for escape tunnels. "Are you scared?" a teenager asked Alex as they passed him a box of tools. Little," Alex admitted. "But I'd rather be scared and free than safe and a slave." Nights became restless. People stayed up listening for the sound of ships in the sky. In secret rooms, hackers tried to break into the Zelkor's network, searching for weaknesses. In quiet kitchens, parents hugged their children close, whispering stories of bravery. On every street, artists painted messages of hope. Never surrender. We stand together. Earth will not fall. The Zelkor could not understand it. They had taken planets with more power, more soldiers, more weapons. Why would these humans fight so hard? They sent another message, colder. Then the last, resist and you will suffer. Surrender, and you will survive. Still, Earth remained silent. The people of Earth were not ready to kneel. Mia finished her radio jammer and passed it to a group of local students. Together they set up a secret signal, sending messages of resistance to every city. "They want us to surrender because it's easy," she said to her new friends. "Let's show them that Earth is not easy." On the other side of the world, an old farmer named Ethan filled his truck with food and drove it to the city. "If they're going to fight, they need to eat," he said simply. Others followed his example, sharing whatever they could. Even people who had never met before became friends and partners in the fight. As the Zelkor's main fleet drew closer, fear spread like a shadow. But so did hope. In a small church, people gathered to pray, not for safety, but for courage. "Give us the strength to stand," the priest said quietly, "even if we are the last ones left." Finally, the day came when the main Zelkor fleet entered Earth's skies. The ships blotted out the sun, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Alex looked up, sweat on his brow but fire in his eyes. "They can take our power, our technology, even our lives," he whispered to his team. "But they cannot take our will. We are human. We will never surrender." In cities and villages, on mountaintops and in deserts, people stood together. Some held weapons, some held tools, and some simply held hands. The Zelkor's message echoed again. "This is your last chance. Surrender now." But Earth did not answer. Instead, the people of Earth waited, united, stubborn, and full of hope that, even against an unbeatable enemy, they could write their own future. And as the sun set on that long day, the galaxy watched and wondered. For the first time in history, someone was standing up to the conquering race. For the first time, the Zelkor had to ask themselves, what if we can't make them surrender? The night was heavy with tension, but not silent. In every city, in every town, people waited for what would happen next. They knew the Zelkor would not go away quietly. The world was awake, candles burning in windows and radios whispering the latest news. Parents stayed up with their children, holding them close. Soldiers guarded the streets, their uniforms messy, but their eyes sharp. In the command room under Washington, the president sat with her advisors. She had not slept. There were lines of worry on her face, but also a kind of unbreakable courage. "Are we ready?" she asked the general. "As ready as we can be," he replied. "Everyone is at their post. The cities are on lockdown, and the people, they refuse to give up." She nodded, looking at a screen showing Earth's blue and green shape. Then we give the Zelkor our answer. Above Earth, the Zelkor fleet waited. Their flagship, dark and shaped like a blade, hung in the sky. Inside, the Zelkor leader, a tall figure with silver armor, watched Earth's signals. He could not understand why humans were not begging for mercy. In his long years of conquering, no world had ever kept him waiting this long. "Send the message again," the Zelkor leader ordered. Across Earth, every device came alive. The message was short and cold. "Earth, surrender or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond." People looked at their screens, at each other, and then at the sky. In homes, schools, and shops, they did not panic. Instead, a quiet anger began to grow. Old memories came back, stories of wars, freedom, and standing strong even when hope seemed lost. In a small room in London, an artist painted a mural on the side of a building. She used bright colors and bold shapes, a human hand reaching up, breaking free from heavy chains. A group of children watched her, eyes wide. "Why do you paint?" one child asked. She smiled. "Because they want us to feel small. I want us to remember that we are strong." Meanwhile, Alex and his team moved through the city. They checked the defenses and encouraged the tired volunteers. The streets were full of people carrying food, water, and supplies to those on the front lines. Neighbors who had never spoken before worked side by side, driven by the same stubborn hope. Alex's radio crackled. Mia, the engineer in Tokyo, was on the other end. "Alex, we're ready here," she said. "Our jammer is working. We've got a surprise for the Zelkor." "Good," Alex replied. "Stay safe, Mia. They'll come for us soon." As the hour ticked down, small acts of bravery began everywhere. In Brazil, a group of teenagers blocked a bridge, refusing to let Zelkor scouts cross. In India, old railway workers turned train cars into barricades. In Australia, fishermen sailed out to sea using their boats to jam the invaders' sensors. Everyone wanted to help, even if it meant only buying a little more time. At the end of the hour, Earth sent their answer. The president appeared on every screen, her face calm and her voice steady. "To the Zelkor, we have heard your demands. We choose freedom. We will not surrender." Her words echoed around the world. Cheers rose in every city and village. Even the Zelkor paused, surprised by this open defiance. On the flagship, the Zelkor leader's eyes narrowed. "So be it," he said. "Prepare for the first strike." The first attack came quickly. Zelkor ships fired beams of energy at Earth's largest power plants. But humans were ready. Engineers had already disconnected the grid. The energy flashed harmlessly in the sky, and people cheered. The invaders tried to jam human communications, but Maya's device scrambled their signals, and the resistance stayed. Connected, in the chaos, the first real battle began on the ground. In New York, Alex led his team to the city's edge, where Zelkor soldiers landed. The enemy marched forward, expecting fear. Instead, they found barricades manned by firefighters, students, and old veterans. "Hold the line!" Alex shouted. The Zelkor fired strange weapons, but humans answered with whatever they had. Old rifles, homemade traps, even fireworks. The air was full of smoke and bright lights. At one point, a group of musicians played loud music through giant speakers, confusing the Zelkor sensors and making their march even harder. In the middle of the fight, a Zelkor drone flew low. A young girl with a slingshot shot a rock at it, and to everyone's shock, the drone spun out of control and crashed. Laughter broke out. "See? They're not so scary," someone shouted. News spread quickly. Humans had stopped the first wave. Other cities saw this and grew bolder. In Paris, people filled the streets singing songs of freedom. In Beijing, artists projected messages onto the sky. Earth stands united. In Lagos, a group of farmers set fire to the fields, creating smoke to hide their villages from Zelkor eyes. The Zelkor regrouped and attacked again. This time, they used their strongest weapons, sending down metal spheres that unleashed storms of electricity. But human scientists had predicted this. They used old rubber tires and wooden boards to shield the shelters, saving hundreds of lives. Every small victory built more hope. Deep in the Zelkor flagship, the leader began to doubt. How do they resist so well? He asked his advisors. One advisor replied, they do not fight like other races. They fight together, with spirit and tricks. Meanwhile, Mia's team hacked into the Zelkor systems. They sent false signals, making the invaders think human armies were in the wrong places. This confusion saved entire neighborhoods. In another part of the world, an old radio host in Egypt broadcast stories from the front lines, keeping spirits high. They want us to surrender, he said. But every hour we stand is another hour we prove them wrong. As the battles raged on, new heroes appeared everywhere. A group of mountain climbers in Peru used ropes and rocks to block a narrow pass, trapping a whole squad of Zelkor soldiers. In Moscow, subway drivers filled the tunnels with trains, hiding people underground. Even small children helped, delivering food and water to tired fighters. The president held another meeting with her team. We are winning small battles, she said, but we must stay smart. They are not done yet. She ordered the leaders of every country to share information freely, breaking old barriers and rivalries. Suddenly, there was no east or west, no north or south, just Earth fighting as one. Alex's team was exhausted but hopeful. I never thought I'd see the day, one soldier said, when the whole world worked together. Alex nodded. Maybe that's what makes us human. The Zelkor tried new tricks. They landed in remote areas hoping to catch people off guard, but everywhere they went, they found resistance. Even animals seemed to join the fight, dogs barking at patrols, birds carrying messages between camps. The planet itself seemed to reject the invaders. At night, Mia sent a signal across the world. We are not alone. Keep fighting. Keep believing. Her words traveled from city to city, whispered in the dark, giving comfort to the worried and the brave. As the days turned, to nights and back to days, the Zelkor grew frustrated. They had never faced an enemy like this. Their leaders argued in the flagship, unsure what to do next. They do not break, one said. Then we must hit harder, replied another. The Zelkor prepared for a massive assault, gathering their ships and planning to attack Earth's main cities all at once. But humans were ready. Their defenses, though simple, were strong. Their spirits, though tired, were unbroken. On the eve of the next attack, people across the world sent one last message. From every city, every town, every village, voices joined. As one, we do not surrender. We are Earth. And as the Zelkor watched, waiting for fear, they saw something they had never seen before, a planet full of hope, standing together against the darkness. The world did not sleep. After the second night of battles with the Zelkor, there was a strange energy everywhere. The skies were scarred by streaks of burning ships, both human and alien. The roads were covered with barricades made from anything people could find: cars, bricks, old furniture, and piles of sandbags. The Zelkor's perfect plan was slowly falling apart, and every small human victory sent a ripple of hope across the globe. In the early morning, Alex sat with his team inside, a half-destroyed cafe on the edge of New York. The windows were broken, but the coffee machine still worked. An old woman, her hair tied back with a bright scarf, served steaming cups to the tired defenders. You keep us going, she smiled. Alex nodded, too tired for words. Around him, young soldiers, police officers, and even teenagers from the Neighborhood rested with bruised faces but shining eyes. They were exhausted, but none of them wanted to give up. Outside, the streets were busy. Volunteers repaired broken power lines, medics treated the wounded, and engineers set up new traps. For the Zelkor, everyone helped in some way. Children drew pictures of the battles on walls, showing human heroes fighting against strange, silver monsters. Shopkeepers gave away food and water for free. Everywhere, people whispered, "We can win. We just need to hold on." Far above, the Zelkor leader watched Earth with growing anger. He had never lost a world, never faced such chaos. "Why do they not surrender?" he demanded, his voice echoing in the control room of the flagship. One of his commanders, a younger Zelkor with quick, careful eyes, answered quietly, "These humans are not like the others, sir. They fight with tricks and ideas. They do not give up." In Tokyo, Mia and her friends worked in a hidden room beneath the city. Their radio jammer kept the Zelkor from listening to human plans. But Mia wanted to do more. She worked with a group of students and old engineers to build small robots from scrap. These robots crawled into the streets, carrying messages and setting off alarms to confuse the invaders. "Let's show them that we can be everywhere at once," Mia said, tightening a screw with tired fingers. On the other side of the world, in a mountain village in Peru, climbers and farmers blocked a narrow mountain pass. The Zelkor tried to move through the rocky trail, but found themselves stopped by rolling boulders and clever traps. At night, villagers lit fires on the hills to send signals across the valleys. "We are still free." The battles grew fiercer. The Zelkor attacked bigger cities with more soldiers and more advanced machines. They dropped small drones that flew through windows, looking for hiding people, but children used slingshots to knock them down, and old men set up nets on rooftops to catch them. In Moscow, subway workers led hundreds of people into the deep tunnels under the city, safe from the alien attacks. Above ground, others painted the word "Hope" in big letters wherever they could. As the sun rose, the Zelkor changed their tactics. They stopped attacking big cities and started landing in small towns and villages, hoping to scare people into surrendering. But everywhere they went, they met resistance. In a farm in Kansas, a family used an old tractor to block the road. "Go back!" the farmer shouted as the Zelkor approached. The invaders tried to push forward, but the farmer's dog barked and ran circles around their legs, confusing them until the neighbors arrived with pitchforks and courage. Back in New York, Alex's team received a secret message from Mia in Tokyo. She had discovered a weak point in the Zelkor's communications. "If we can hack into their system, we can send false orders," Mia explained over the radio. "Let's try it," Alex agreed. Together, their teams worked through the night. They used old computers, hacked cell phones, and even radios from a museum to break into the Zelkor's network. Finally, they sent out a message that told several groups of Zelkor soldiers to retreat. When the real commanders saw their soldiers leaving the field, they were furious. But the confusion gave humans time to regroup and save more people. By evening, the world was buzzing with stories of bravery and cleverness. In France, bakers delivered bread to the defenders, hiding messages inside the loaves. In Egypt, radio hosts played songs of courage, keeping hope alive even during the worst attacks. In India, a group of school teachers turned their classrooms into safe zones for lost children. The Zelkor felt the pressure. In their flagship, the leaders argued about what to do next. "Their technology is old, but their minds are sharp," one said. "They have too much spirit," said another. The Zelkor leader pounded his fist on the table. "Then we must crush their spirit. No more warnings. Attack everywhere at once." The next morning, the biggest attack began. Zelkor ships descended on dozens of cities at the same time, the sky filled with thunder and strange blue lights. People ran for cover, but most stayed to fight. Alex stood at the barricade, looking at his friends and neighbors. "They are coming," he said quietly. "Remember why we fight. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who cannot stand here." The first wave of Zelkor soldiers marched forward, their weapons humming. The defenders fired back with everything they had: homemade rockets, old rifles, even bags of sand dropped from windows above. The battle was wild and loud. At one point, the power went out, and the street was plunged into darkness. But the humans did not panic. Instead, someone began to sing. Soon, others joined in. The song rose above the noise of battle, filling the air with courage. The Zelkor hesitated, unsure what to do. In the confusion, Mia's robots scurried into the enemy lines, delivering smoke bombs and spreading panic. The Zelkor fell back, disoriented. In a hospital nearby, doctors and nurses worked without rest, treating the injured and sending the healthy back to the front lines. "We are all part of this fight," a nurse said, bandaging a young soldier's arm. The sun set on another day of resistance. The world was battered, but still unbroken. In villages and cities, people shared stories around fires, stories of lost loved ones, of small victories, and of hope that tomorrow would be better. Alex, sitting by the broken window of the cafe, watched the stars appear. "They are strong," he thought. "But we are stronger together." Far above, the Zelkor leader listened to reports of defeat and confusion. "They should have surrendered by now," he whispered, staring at the swirling blue marble of Earth. His advisors were silent. They had never seen humans before. Never understood this mix of hope, stubbornness, and kindness. The Zelkor fleet prepared for another day, but doubts began to grow. For the first time, the conquerors wondered if victory was truly possible. On Earth, as the fires burned low and the world rested for a moment, a feeling spread across the planet. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, the impossible could be done. The world had been fighting for days. Every hour brought new stories of courage and hope. Even though the Zelkor were powerful and their weapons were advanced, the humans refused to surrender. Every city, every village, and every family had found their own way to stand strong. Still, the fight was not over, and everyone knew that the hardest battle was still ahead. In New York, Alex stood with his team on the roof of a half-ruined building. The city was scarred, but not broken. There were still people on the streets, moving carefully, carrying supplies and messages between neighborhoods. Alex looked at the sky, where the dark shapes of Zelkor ships hovered, blocking out the sun. "They're not leaving," whispered one of the young volunteers beside him. "No," Alex answered, his voice steady, "but neither are we." In the hidden room beneath Tokyo, Mia and her team worked non-stop. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was sharp. She watched the green lines of code on her old laptop, hoping for a breakthrough. Suddenly, one of the students beside her gasped. "Mia, look!" He pointed to a section of Zelkor code flashing on the screen. "I think we've found it," Mia said, excitement pushing away her exhaustion. After days of trying, they had finally cracked part of the Zelkor communication system. "Send it to Alex and the others," she ordered quickly. "This could change everything." The message traveled quickly, bouncing between underground networks across the world. Leaders and fighters everywhere read the information and understood its power. They now knew how to listen in on the Zelkor, and even how to confuse their orders. Meanwhile, in the command center under Washington, the president gathered her closest advisors. "This is our chance," she said quietly. "We can use this information to predict where the Zelkor will strike. We can save lives." Everyone nodded. For the first time since the invasion began, there was hope in the room. The president made a decision. Every city would share information, every group would work together, and no one would be left alone. The Zelkor, however, had their own plans. Inside their flagship, The leader grew impatient. "The humans are stubborn," he said, pacing back and forth. "We must show them our true strength. We attack everywhere at once, leave no place untouched." And so, as the next sunrise lit up Earth, the biggest attack began. Zelkor ships descended on cities and towns all over the world. Beams of energy cut through the sky. Machines rolled down streets, their engines roaring. In New York, alarms blared as soldiers and volunteers rushed to their posts. Alex grabbed his helmet and ran to the front line. "Everyone, hold your ground!" he shouted. On the streets, people stood side by side, firefighters, teachers, shopkeepers, and even children. No one wanted to run. Everyone was ready to fight. In Tokyo, Mia sent new orders through the hacked network. "They're heading to the East Bridge," she messaged. Defenders quickly moved to block the bridge, using trucks and old cars. When the Zelkor arrived, they found a wall of resistance and a rain of homemade firebombs. The invaders were forced to retreat, and cheers echoed across the city. Similar scenes played out everywhere. In Paris, artists painted giant targets on the roads, tricking Zelkor machines into falling into traps. In Lagos, groups of young boys raced through the streets, sending false signals to the enemy and leading them into dead ends. In Brazil, soccer players used their speed to run messages between resistance groups, dodging patrols and keeping hope alive. But the fight was not easy. The Zelkor weapons were strong. Many buildings were damaged, and the wounded crowded every hospital. Doctors worked without rest, using whatever supplies they had left. In a hospital basement, an old nurse wiped sweat from her brow and comforted a crying child. "Don't worry," she whispered. "The world is standing together. You are not alone." Even the planet itself seemed to help. Heavy rain slowed the Zelkor machines in India. Sudden fog in London let defenders escape a trap. In the deserts of Australia, a sandstorm blinded the invaders for hours, giving humans time to regroup. In the middle of chaos, new heroes appeared. In Moscow, subway drivers risked their lives to rescue people trapped by a collapsed building. In Kenya, a school teacher led her students through a secret tunnel, bringing them safely to the countryside. Everywhere, ordinary people became legends. Alex's team in New York was surrounded. Zelkor soldiers marched down the main road, their weapons raised. The defenders hid behind overturned buses and piles of rubble. "We're outnumbered," said one of the young fighters. Alex shook his head. "We have something they don't. A reason to fight. For our families. For our home." Then, just as the invaders closed in, the radios crackled. "This is Mia," came the message. "The Zelkor commander's orders are coming through now. They're planning to move left in 5 minutes. Be ready." Alex smiled. "Thank you, Mia." He quickly told his team to move right, setting up a surprise attack. When the Zelkor turned, they found the street empty, and then suddenly full of fireworks and homemade traps. The invaders were thrown into confusion, and the humans pushed them back. Other teams did the same all over the world, using Maya's stolen information to outsmart the invaders. The Zelkor were frustrated, their machines tangled in wires, and their soldiers lost in twisting city streets. As the sun set, the biggest battle of the invasion began in Earth's orbit. The humans had managed to repair some old space defense, satellites. With Mia's help, the scientists found a weakness in the main Zelkor flagship's shields. Working together, they launched a surprise attack from the ground and from orbit. Energy beams and missiles crossed the sky. People everywhere looked up, holding their breath. The flagship took a direct hit. For the first time, Zelkor technology failed. The huge ship spun, smoke pouring from its engines. The leader inside stumbled, shocked and angry. "How is this possible?" he demanded. His advisors looked down, afraid to answer. On Earth, celebrations began as soon as people saw the burning ship. In city squares, people hugged and cheered. Even in the darkest shelters, hope returned. But Alex, Mia, and the others knew it was not over yet. The Zelkor still had many ships and many soldiers. "We have to keep going," Alex said, standing on the rooftop as people around him sang songs of victory. "We can win, but only if we stay together." News of Earth's resistance traveled fast. On distant planets, other conquered races watched in awe. Some secretly sent messages of support, hoping to join the fight if Earth won. The Zelkor saw this and grew worried. Their power depended on fear, and now that fear was fading. Inside the flagship, the Zelkor leader made one last plan. "Prepare, all forces," he said. "We will attack with everything we have. If we lose Earth, we lose our control of the galaxy." As the night grew quiet, Earth's people prepared for the final battle. They repaired their defenses, treated their wounded, and shared food and hope with one another. In every corner of the planet, the same words echoed, "Never surrender. Earth stands free." And high above, as the damaged flagship drifted in the stars, the leader of the conquering race wondered, for the first time, if defeat was possible. The world held its breath. After days and nights of fighting, hope and fear mixed in the hearts of everyone on Earth. The Zelkor were ready for one last attack, a final storm to break the human spirit. But the humans were just as ready. In every city, every town, and every small village, people stood together. Tired, hungry, and wounded, they refused to back down. In New York, Alex stood on the rooftop with his team, scanning the skyline for signs of movement. The streets below were quiet for now, but the sky above was crowded with dark ships. Radio. Messages came in from all over the world, some in loud voices, some in whispers, but all with the same message: hold the line. Inside her hidden lab in Tokyo, Maya barely looked up from her laptop. She and her team had worked for hours, sending stolen Zelkor codes to resistance fighters everywhere. Their efforts had given the defenders a chance to prepare for each new attack. And now every small victory seemed to matter even more. "We've got one last shot," Mia said quietly to her friends. "If we work together, we can do this." In a village in Brazil, old men and women shared stories around a fire while young people stood guard outside. In Lagos, kids with radios relayed news between fighters. In France, bakers brought bread to the front lines, their carts loaded with food and kind words. Everyone was part of the same effort now, no matter where they lived or what they did before. The final attack began at dawn. The sky turned red as Zelkor ships filled the air, dropping metal spheres and beams of light. People ran for cover, but no one ran away. Alex barked orders into his radio, moving teams from one street to another. "Remember, trust each other. Use everything we learned, and don't forget why we're here." The first wave of Zelkor soldiers marched through the city. Their armor shone and their faces showed no emotion. But the defenders were ready. Every block had been turned into a fortress. Homemade traps, sandbags, and even overturned cars blocked the roads. At every corner, people waited, some with weapons, some with only courage. As the battle raged, Alex saw a group of children helping an old woman cross the street to safety. He smiled for a moment, even as chaos thundered around him. "They can never defeat people who help each other," he thought. In Tokyo, Mia's team used their hacked codes to turn the Zelkor's own machines against them. In one neighborhood, alien drones started spinning out of control, flying into each other and crashing. Defenders cheered and used the distraction to push the invaders back. "It's working!" shouted one of the students. "Keep going!" Mia encouraged. In Paris, fighters used underground tunnels to move quickly, popping up behind Zelkor squads and surprising them. In Cairo, a group of artists used giant mirrors to blind the enemy and confuse their sensors. In Australia, a storm rolled in, lightning flashing above as farmers and city people fought side by side in the rain. But the Zelkor did not give up. Their leader, furious and desperate, ordered his troops to attack harder and faster. Inside the damaged flagship drifting, above Earth, his voice echoed in every speaker. "Crush their spirit." This world must bow. Yet even as the attacks grew fiercer, Earth's people fought harder. Doctors and nurses ran from one shelter to another, treating wounds and sharing encouraging words. Bakers and cooks brought food to every corner of the city, and musicians played songs of hope from windows and rooftops. Even in the worst moments, someone always found a way to smile, to share a joke, or to give a helping hand. News spread that one of the biggest Zelkor warships had been hit by a team of human engineers working together from 3 different countries. For the first time, the alien fleet seemed to hesitate. Their strongest weapon was gone, and their perfect plans were now full of holes. From the flagship, the Zelkor leader watched the battle and felt a cold fear in his heart. "They should have surrendered days ago," he muttered. His advisors did not answer. They were busy trying to understand how a planet with such old technology could resist so well. As the sun rose higher, something changed. The Zelkor lines began to break. Groups of invaders surrendered or ran back to their ships. Others were surrounded by crowds of unarmed humans who simply refused to move, forcing the Zelkor to retreat without violence. In Moscow, subway drivers opened the doors of the underground to the wounded and the scared. In Kenya, a teacher stood in front of her students, holding a flag and singing the national anthem. The children joined her, their voices growing stronger with every word. Everywhere, people noticed the Zelkor were no longer unstoppable. For the first time, the conquerors were afraid. In Washington, the president stood before the cameras, her voice strong and full of pride. "To every person on Earth, you have shown the universe what it means to be free. We do not surrender. We do not bow. Today, we are not just fighting for our world, but for every world that wants to be free." Her words traveled across the planet and beyond. On distant worlds, others heard the broadcast and found hope. Small rebellions began on planets that had once surrendered easily to the Zelkor. "If humans can do it," they whispered, "maybe we can too." The Zelkor tried to regroup, but nothing worked. Their machines broke down, their soldiers grew tired, and their leader lost control. On Earth, humans pushed forward with everything they had: bravery, cleverness, and a spirit that could not be crushed. In the final hours of the battle, Alex's team joined with fighters from other cities. They moved together through the streets, helping the wounded, freeing trapped people, and clearing the last pockets of resistance. In the sky above, the flagship's engines failed. The huge ship drifted, then exploded in a bright flash. The sound echoed across continents, and for a moment, the whole planet went silent. Then cheers erupted. People danced in the streets, hugged their neighbors, and wept with relief and joy. In homes, schools, and city squares, songs of freedom rose higher than the smoke of battle. Alex found his parents and held them close. "We did it," his mother whispered, her eyes full of tears. "Not just us," Alex replied, "but everyone, together." Mia and her team stepped out of their lab into the sunlight. She looked up at the sky, watching as the last of the Zelkor ships fled into the stars. "They will remember this," Mia said softly. "And so will we," a student agreed. As the dust settled, Earth's people began to rebuild. Strangers became friends, old rivals shook hands, and everyone shared in the work of healing the world. Messages poured in from other planets. Thanks, congratulations, and the promise of new friendships. The galaxy had changed. The Zelkor, beaten and humbled, retreated to the edges of space. Their leaders spoke in hushed voices, warning never to underestimate the spirit of a free people again. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal, but things would never be exactly the same. Children grew up knowing the value of courage and unity. Leaders promised to work for peace, not just on Earth, but across the stars. At night, people looked up at the sky and remembered the days when the world stood together, when everyone, everywhere, refused to surrender. The story of Earth's victory spread far and wide. For generations, it would be told and retold how one small blue planet did the impossible and how hope became the strongest weapon of all.